everyone, it's James, and I don't normally make videos where I feel like I need a disclaimer at the beginning, but this is sort of one of them. If you're expecting a light, breezy DIY video, this isn't the one. We're going to do some complicated stuff. It's going to be a lot more talking than doing. So what do I do in this video? First, I install a Victron Cerbo. That's a communications hub for Victron. I'm going to set it up to talk to our inverter charger, to our MPPT solar charge controller, and to our Lithionics batteries. Now, the Lithionics batteries, what's unique there is I've got 5 separate batteries with 5 discrete internal BMSs. So there's a lot of communication going on there that we have to set up. And that's the third thing we're going to do, is we're going to set up closed loop charging so that all the batteries get the charge that they want from any of the charging sources anytime things are powered on. So we're going to configure DVCC in the Victron, and we're going to talk through some considerations about which batteries you want to control the show and how you make them display individually, etc., etc. It's a lot of technical stuff, so buckle up and try not to fall asleep. So what I'm going to be doing today is installing this in number 1, a Victron Cerbo GX. Now, if you know anything about the Victron ecosystem of products, you probably would have thought I already had one of these installed, right? Because this is a communication hub for all the Victron appliances. And it's what people will typically install when they want to be able to check their battery's state of charge or to turn on their inverter while they are vacationing in Italy or wherever. And yes, this does that, but that doesn't excite me very much. That is actually not why I'm installing this. So why am I installing this? Well, I'm installing it to kind of help make my charging system smarter. So if you remember a couple videos ago, I did a thing where I was kind of checking our battery's state of health after 4 years, and they're all doing pretty good, but I identified an area where they could be improved, and that was in continuing to charge at higher than requested voltages. Go back and watch that video if you want. That explains it all. So in a nutshell, our batteries, our Lithionics batteries, they're smart batteries. They will broadcast information about what sort of charge they would like to accept, what voltage and what current. They will broadcast that over a network to any appliance that would like to listen. Now, some years ago, we installed a Nations alternator and a wake speed charge controller because they listen. And so now when our second alternator is running, it is giving the batteries exactly the charge that they are asking for. And that's fantastic. They'll never get overcharged that way. They won't be damaged. But our inverter charger and our solar charge controller were not quite so smart. They would just run their regular time-based program of getting up to this voltage and hold it there for an hour, yada, yada, yada. Not so great for the battery's long-term state of health. What this will do, this will listen to the batteries through one of these ports. I mean, it's got a lot of ports. Through one of these ports up here, this will listen to the batteries, and it will adjust the charge of the Victron inverter charger and solar charge controller to be that which the battery is requesting. Great. Okay, so besides the Cerbo GX, what am I going to need to pull this off? And it's a lot of cables, actually. Now, if you want to integrate your Lithionics batteries with a Victron, Lithionics actually publishes a white paper, and I'm going to be kind of following that, and I'll link to it in the description and on the article on our website where we discuss this video. They will actually lay out for you what you need to do. And one of the things that they have in there is from Lithionics, I have 2 cables. And they have part numbers. You can just call them up and order these cables. So our batteries are already connected to a CAN bus network that is talking to our wake speed charge controller. These are the parts. See, there we go. We got an RJ45 connector right there so that we can plug it into the Cerbo, right? So these and this will branch off and adapt and then be able to plug that into here. And the Cerbo comes with terminators so you can properly terminate the ends of this network connection. So these 2 cables, 75 dash, blah, 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 from Lithionics. Need those. All right, so here we have batteries to the Cerbo. Oh. Solar charge controller to the Cerbo. And then I've got to get the inverter charger connected. Now, currently I have an RJ45 cable going from the inverter charger all the way around the RV up to here, that's going to help you, but by the door, where there's just like a switch where I can set the charge limit like 28 amps instead of 30, kind of a thing. I'm going to leave that. There's a second port on the inverter charger, And currently it's plugged into like a Bluetooth adapter, but I am 95% certain, because this is me and I know how my life goes, I'm 95% certain that that cable is going to be too short for me to reuse and get to where I need to mount the Cerbo. So I have a longer, basically an Ethernet cable, to get from the inverter charger to the Cerbo. Now, oh, and then this comes with the Cerbo. This is power, right? And we're going to be installing it under the Dynet where there's all sorts of power, so fine. That's why I'm going to have to turn off the power. One thing you don't see here is a display. This has no display, right? The Cerbo. They make a display that you can run with an HDMI. See, there's an HDMI port, right? They make a display that you can run with an HDMI cable. Yeah, but I didn't want another screen in the RV, and it's 30 feet away as the cable runs to where I would want the screen anyway, and I just didn't feel like a 30-foot HDMI and USB cable to power this thing. So I'm going to run it headless, because I'm not really doing this for much of the monitoring. I'm just mostly doing it for the charge control to integrate with our Lithionics batteries. So I'm going to set it up so I can pull it up on an iPad and have the full Victron experience on an iPad, but I'm not going to put in a dedicated display. I'm just going to use my phone or a Padlet or whatever in order to like change parameters and set this up. We'll get to that later, hopefully, once I've got the air conditioning turned back on. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be working with. Theoretically, if this was all on a wall, this would be like a 5-minute operation. You just click, 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 plug, plug, go. But because it's an RV and I'm going to have to fish cables, I'm sure it's going to be just joyous. All right, let's go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the solar panels so there's no charge coming in from solar. That's a breaker I installed, cuts the charge from the solar panels. It's down to 83 in here now, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn this off. Then I'm going to cut the inverter off. And now, a normal Echo Lithionics install has like one 250 amp breaker in it. I've got two in parallel, so those are over here. I'm going to kick those off, and then you'll see it get dark. Or not. No, there we go. Now, just to be safe, I'm going to turn off the batteries. That's better. Now I got to go unplug, and then I'll be back. First thing we're going to do is the DC power for the Cerbo. The hardest part of that was actually getting the cover back on. I think also I probably want to dismount this Bluetooth thing since I'm not going to be using it anymore. Let's see if I can get that done. Here's the cable. This cable will not quite... Will it? Will it? Okay. And can I mount that? Oh! I don't have to fish a cable. Heck yeah. All right, cool. That means I can turn the power back on if I'm going to go with this cable. 5 batteries, 2 breakers, 1, 2, 1 inverter, and 1 air conditioner. Next, we'll plug in the solar charge controller, which is this VE direct cable. Oh wow, I hope that's long enough. Yeah, barely. Okay. Now, to connect up the batteries. This is kind of interesting. So look over here. All these batteries, they're all daisy chained together to form sort of a network. So here's one extreme end of the network, and there is a terminator on there. So, and it's got these BNC sort of connectors on. So there's a terminator, and there's battery 5 following it out, and battery 4, back out, battery 3, back out, battery 2, 2, back out, battery 1, and then now we're over in here. And here's the connector for battery 1, BNC, to this sort of automotive type connector here. So what I'm going to do now is, this is one of my Lithionics parts, is a splitter, basically. So I'm going to take this gray cable, runs up to the wake speed up in the engine compartment. So I'm going to put basically a Y adapter on this, and then we're going to split it off, and one of them is going to continue to go to the wake speed, and then the other one is going to come over to the Victron. So here we go. I wouldn't do this while the vehicle was running. All right, now one of these, let's take this one, it's going to continue on out to the wake speed where it was, and then this one is going to connect to this other cable, and this has RJ45 connection on it, and then I'll have to run inside and grab a terminator, but I can plug this into the CAN bus connections on the Victron. But let me thread this around first. All right, and then plug it into power and see what happens. All right, I got lights saying that there's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so it's a basic. Does it show up in my app? Woohoo! There it is, Cerbo. Okay, I'm not going to show you my PIN code, so let me clean this up and then we'll come back and do the programming. Okay, and I'll confess, I don't remember where I left off, but last night pretty quickly devolved into hours of me struggling with apps and cursing at the Netherlands and trying to get things to work. And I eventually did, and so the way I've got them working now is I've got a monitor basically up on an iPad that's connected to the same network as the Cerbo is. So, but I learned a lot of stuff along the way, and I've took notes, and so I'm going to share that with you. But first, let's dive in, and we'll take a look at how the app looks, how my console looks. Okay, so this is sort of the main screen of what we've got here. This is well, it comes with this other page that's like, I don't know, this is clearly designed by some sort of artistic person and not an engineer, because I don't get that at all. This I get. So here we show basically how much power I've got coming in. I've only got one phase of power working, 1420 watts in, great. The inverter charger shows external control. That is what we want. And I've got the air conditioner running now because it's 106 here today, so 1200 watts the air conditioner. Solar is on, batteries that are 100%, and I've got 190 watts of DC loads going on as well. So the cool thing is, when I finally got it all set up, when I tap battery here, come on, there we go, I can actually see all 5 of my batteries, and there they are. They're all sitting at 100%. So right now they're floating at 13.6, or I guess 13.55 volts. Cool. Now if I drill into any one of these batteries, I can see a little bit more info, like the parameters that the battery is sending, like how much charge it would like. So right now battery 1 is saying I would like a 13.6 volt charge. I can accept up to 6.4 amps, so this battery is in float. So all the batteries, and I did check these, I cross-checked these with what I was getting out of the Lithionics app, and it's the same value. So that part is working fine. It does seem to be about like a half of, not a half, 0.05 volts lower here in this app than what I'm seeing in the Lithionics app. I don't think it's really going to hurt anything. And it's pretty warm, so the batteries are at like 90 plus degrees. So the other thing that I had to set up was the external charging control. And so this is currently, it's set, it always says absorption charging, I don't know why. I still have my digital control panel, like the little control panel there by the door where I can dial down with a little knob the amount of shore power charge I'll accept. I've still got that installed, and so I actually, if you try to touch one of these, it says, ooh, you can't do that when you can't change anything here that you could change on the actual hard wired panel, because that would render the panel worthless. And so I like that, I actually like that. Where settings, here we go. So there was a lot I had to set up here, take you through the highlights. So there is DVCC, distributed voltage and current control. I had to look that up. That is enabled. That is what tells Victron to listen to something else in order to run your charging. And so in this case, we can see it is listening to this BMS from Lithionics version 2.0.11, that one, which is, I think I figured out that's battery number 3. And I'll explain why that's battery 3 in a bit. So I had a lot of difficulties in getting this set up. And a lot of those difficulties were due to the fact that I wanted to run the Cerbo sort of headless, let's call it. If I had installed a touch panel display, the 50 or the 70, the 5 or the 7 inch display, I'm sure things would have been much, much easier for me. But I didn't want to do that. And so things were a bit more difficult. I tried to do things through the Victron Connect app, and that didn't work, or only some things worked, and then only on Bluetooth, and then until the Bluetooth radio got warm, apparently. That's a thing with these. And then certain Bluetooth functions wouldn't work, and then it would only show up on the iPad and not my phone, and it got really wonky, and I was really cursing at the Netherlands at that point. But I understand that a lot of those difficulties were because I wanted to run without a display. So that's, now VRM, which is their remote management software, that actually worked quite well. But I didn't want to have to connect to servers in the Netherlands to control an inverter that's right here. So I didn't really want to rely on that too much, but it did work right away. The Victron Connect app, not so much. In fact, I think I'm going to throw it out, because the only way I could get things to work reliably is by being on the same network, so we're connected to the network here in the van, and then going to this IP address. You can go to venus.local, I think, or I actually just assigned it to a particular IP address, so I know it will always be this one IP address, and there we go. So anyway, next, the Lithionics white paper was extremely valuable in getting this set up. I mean, it had me set, I just followed the steps, and it was pretty much right on. I had to set the CAN port to tell it was RVC instead of some sort of Victron brand of CAN, and that went fine. And then I had to enable the DVCC. That was pretty much just like they said. And then all my charge parameters are now showing up on the Victron. Could not have done that without that white paper. That's great. And the Lithionics cables, too. Those were also spot on. No difficulty with cables at all. And, actually they outline in the white paper, I think, even what pins you would, if you want to solder and crimp your own cables, I guess you could do that, but I had no desire to do that. So they have part numbers, just order the cables and it'll all work fine. And indeed it is. Now, there are some peculiarities to having multiple BMSs hooked up to this thing. And so here we'll go in and we can see the 5 different batteries I've got. Now, first thing is that in order for this to work, each of your batteries needs to have a unique ID. And this is something you can see in the Lithionics app. There'll be like a battery ID. I had already set this up because this was not my first CAN rodeo, since I have the WakeSpeed charge controller to control the charge from our second alternator. It needed to be able to address each of the 5 batteries also, and so they already had unique IDs. But if you haven't done any of this before, you're going to need to set a unique ID for each of the batteries, and I think there's a video is where I got the instructions on how to set a unique ID, but that goes back a couple years now. So you have to have a unique ID to get each battery to show up, otherwise it'll all just get jumbled up and confused when it tries to show the batteries. Now, they all show up in the app, as you can see here, and I can look at all of the different parameters for each of them, and this must be that battery 3 again. They all show up in the app, but there are 5, in my case, I've got 5 voices talking, saying, I want this charge, I want that charge, I want this charge, I want the other charge. And, there's only one inverter, right? So you have to sort of pick which battery the inverter is going to listen to. And so you can tell it, where is it? It's right here in DVCC, charge control. So right now, controlling BMS. And I went in here, and you could have it pick one automatically, but automatic is not really super automatic. It just picks the battery with the lowest ID. So in my case, that would be battery number 1. Or you can pick one of the batteries, and they don't show up with happy names. They show up with just rando names here, but you can figure it out. If you go back and forth and look at your app, you can figure out which one is which. In my case, I wound up choosing battery 3 And here's why. And I had to phone a friend to make sure that I had this logic correctly. But here's the reasoning for battery number 3, which is right in the middle of my stack. So when you're charging, in my case, battery number 1 always seems to get to 100% first. And it wants to go into float first. So if battery number 1 got to 100% charge and then said, okay, that's it, I'm done, we're going to go float, and then it set the inverter to only deliver a float charge, the other batteries might not ever make it to 100%, right? So that was one option. I didn't want to do that. Then battery number 3, either 3 or 5, it kind of flips around, but battery number 3 seemed to be reliably one of the last batteries to reach full charge. And so I selected that one because by ensuring that that battery is fully charged, then I ensure that all the other batteries are fully charged as well. Now, that will mean there's a little bit more absorption time on the batteries that get there first, but I sat here and I actually did this, right? I actually sat here last night and watched batteries charge, which has got to be like the RV nerd equivalent of watching paint dry, but I did it. And the time between when the first battery hit, 100% and then when the last battery, we're talking like 5 to 10 minutes. So that's all the additional absorption time that like the early batteries are going to get. They're going to get like 5 to 10 minutes extra absorption. And then the last battery is going to get there and it's going to dial the charge down, and then that stops it. Okay, one quick point. This battery showing here on the home page, you have to pick which battery that is. And you do that in the settings page and you go down to system setup, battery. It's not necessarily the same battery that's controlling the charging, and that took me a while to wrap my head around, but you're here to batteries. You can tell which battery to monitor, and here it's picked automatic. And what that means is it's going to pick the battery with the lowest ID, which in the case of my system, that's battery number 1. So we can see here battery number 1 is at 91 degrees right now. So is battery 5, but this is the one that we're going to see on the home page. You could peg it to one particular battery or another, but automatic works well enough for me. It's battery number 1. So that, if we go back out to the home page, nope, not that. Here, 91 degrees. It's either battery 1 or 5, but it's battery 1. Trust me, I've gone around and around with this. So, does the DVCC, does this charge control from the Lithionics, does it work? And the answer is yes, it absolutely does. And that's why I was watching, and I even unplugged and like ran the air conditioner and then plugged in again to make sure that I got the same thing the second time through, watching batteries charge. Anyway, yes, it does work. So both the inverter, and it controls the solar charge controller too. Like if we go in here to the solar charge controller, it is also controlled externally, right? And so, and I've got this right now, I mean, I'm under the carport here, but I've got this plugged into the solar panels up top. And basically, we're not getting much out of it at all right now because everybody is fully charged. But I was able to watch this, and as the battery that was controlling the show got to 100%, and then I would watch its CAN charging parameters in the Lithionics app, and then I would see the voltage start to drop. It doesn't drop instantaneously, but it would drop down to that target voltage. So yes, it does work, and it works for both the inverter charger and the solar charge controller. And I suspect if I had a B2B charger, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't get a B2B charger, besides that I don't need it, but it's a cool toy. I kind of want it still. If I had a B2B charger, that would also be controlled by this, and then I would only get the charge from the B2B charger that I wanted. So that would be fantastic. Okay, wow. That was a lot of freaking talking. If you have questions or comments, and I'm sure there will be many, there will be a link in the YouTube description down below that will go to a post on thefitrv.com. You can hop over there and ask questions, leave comments, whatever, and I'll try my best to answer them for you. And yeah, this is how we're going to roll now. And if I'd have known it was this easy, I probably would have done it right after I did the alternator. Somehow I thought it was going to be like a bigger pain in the butt than it was, but it wasn't. Anyway, also, I'll put a link to the Lithionics white paper in the description as well, so that you can see that white paper and see what might be involved if you wanted to do this for yourself. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. This is James. We'll see you later. Bye.